Here we're going to talk about some time management tips for the MBE. So first, focus on the highly tested areas of law. Not all areas of law are tested equally on the MBE, so some areas of law are worth more than others. You want to focus on those areas of law because you're going to get the most points for your study time. Next, practice both timed and untimed exams. Ironically, sometimes slowing down is the key to speeding up. One of my students who was really struggling with timing, I said, stop taking timed exams for a little bit. All right, they went back to it eventually, but I said, stop for now and start answering questions really slowly. Dissect them, read the facts, see if you can identify the issue, state the rule. Go through these steps one by one. And the reason that helped this student was because then they started to get naturally better at speeding up. Okay, how to approach these questions was kind of in their muscle memory, and they got much faster at it by doing that. So sometimes slowing down is the key to speeding up. Of course, you still want to answer timed questions too, okay? You want to practice in a timed setting and make sure that you can complete the MBE under those timed conditions. Next, review the areas of law that are harder for you. You don't have to treat all subjects or topics equally. Focus on the highly tested areas and focus on the areas that you know you need to focus on. You might need to focus on hearsay exceptions versus someone else might know them really well. Okay, so you know you better than another person or even a commercial course that's just kind of cookie cutter to the general student. Focus on what you need to focus on. Use real questions. This is a good way to maximize your study time because these actual official released MBE questions are going to be better than just questions that a course invents or these made up practice questions. It's okay to use questions that a course invents. It's still a good source of practice, but make sure that you're including actual official NCBE released questions in your practice as well. Have an MBE Scantron strategy. This is important for exam day because if you find that you're one of those people that gets to a question and then gets stuck and then you get behind and then you run out of time and you end up bubbling into 15 questions at the end, this is going to help you. What I used to do is if I really didn't know the answer to a question, I had no idea what it was, I would put a dash by it. If I struggled with it, like I wasn't super confident in my answer choice, I would put a dot next to the question. Then I would finish the exam kind of early, okay, because I had a lot of dots and dashes. I didn't spend too long on any single question. I would go back and I would start by prioritizing. I would review all the questions with dashes next to them. If I had time, I would then go on to review the questions with dots next to them. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's the dot dash system. And it would help me make sure that I didn't spend too long on any question. I could move on knowing that if I had time, I'd be coming back to that question. Some students would just skip questions altogether. I knew one student that literally skipped every single real property question. They just answered B or C or whatever and just skipped all of them. I don't recommend that. They actually passed the exam with that strategy. I don't recommend that. But if you see one you don't know, I would recommend bubbling it in. Okay, you don't want to forget to bubble in an answer choice or mess up your Scantron, but bubble it in, mark it somehow so that you know you can come back to it later. Next, complete several timed exams before the actual exam. If you're taking the exam under standard testing conditions, you want to complete 33 questions in an hour. Sometimes though, that's almost too vague for students. They say, okay, 33 questions in an hour, but after the first hour, they're only on question 25, So then they're already behind and they get anxious. So if you're that person, it's going to be helpful for you to divide the time into 15-minute increments. So after 15 minutes, you should have completed 9 questions. After 30 minutes, 18 questions. All right. And if you do this, you're going to complete the MBE with 15 minutes to spare. All right. So that might be a more helpful approach than saying, okay, I have to answer 33 questions in an hour. Next, combat MBE fatigue. Some students run out of time on the MBE just because they suffer from fatigue. If you find yourself getting, when you look at your Scantron or your answer sheet, if you find that most of your incorrect answers are in the middle of the exam where you were extra tired or at the end of the exam when you felt extra fatigued, it might be time to start incorporating some other strategies, okay? If you find that you get most of the questions wrong in the beginning, it might be because of anxiety, all right? So that's a different problem. Fatigue usually comes up toward the middle of the exam or at the end of the exam. If you're not sure if you get questions wrong due to MBE fatigue, when you take a practice exam, actually write down what question you start to feel really tired at and see if you start to get more questions wrong then. Doing things like eating right, exercising enough, and sleeping enough, it might sound obvious, but these are great key ways to combat MBE fatigue. If this is just something you notice when you practice, try answering MBE questions at a different time of day. I've had some students that answer MBE questions at night. It's the last thing they do. They're already exhausted and stressed out and they're not thinking their best. So if they answer questions in the morning, they'll see their score improve significantly, literally just due to the time of day that they're answering the questions. So that would be one approach. If you start to feel really tired while you're taking the exam, consider getting up and going to the bathroom. If that stresses you out too much, consider putting your head down for 30 to 60 seconds or stretching or doing something just to kind of give your brain a break and then get back to it. And that should help you feel a little bit more energized. Lastly, study during the same times that you're going to be taking the exam. So if you're studying all night, then you're going to be tired on the actual MBE day because you're going to be used to sleeping during the day rather than studying during the day. So it might be helpful if your MBE is administered from 9 a.m. to noon and then from 2 p.m. to 5. It might be helpful to study during those times and actually answer some MBE questions during those times. So on the actual MBE day, you're not too tired or exhausted. And in fact, you're used to kind of thinking critically during that time of day.